I released my first video, a review of 1934's Best Picture winner, It Happened One Night, on June 18th, 2013. 10 long years, plus a few months, have flown by. I thought it fitting to celebrate with a re-review of course, my first text review covering 1927's The Jazz Singer that I released in October 2012 on my now seldom used text blog. Yeah, I know it's a bit odd, but I don't feel like re-reviewing It Happened One Night just yet. But I do have interest in redoing some of my early videos when I'm more caught up with new videos. Instead, for the past few years, my mind's been preoccupied with early sound pictures. With The Jazz Singer entering the public domain this year, it gives me another excuse to review it again. Before writing this piece, I didn't look at my old review, which I've mostly forgotten, so any similar comments or critiques will be coincidental. So what is The Jazz Singer? Well, it's the first feature-length sound picture. Except not really. The history of sound and motion pictures is a long one. I'm saving an in-depth look at it for another day.
Now to me, nudge, now to me, say no more, now to me.
But here's a brief rundown. Sound pictures are almost as old as film itself, with it being talked about as early as 1888 when a deal was almost made between Thomas Edison, who'd seen success in his sound recording and playback inventions, and Edward Muybridge, an English photographer best known for his studies of motion that led to the development of the Hortian motion, the first hints at capturing and playing back movement. Over the next few decades, many inventors and film-related individuals tried and failed to develop a system that would not only record video and sound simultaneously in a practical and cost-efficient way.
I could not make the day pass without seeing you.
Well, you are very good.
I have watched you daily, attracted by your devotion to your grandfather.
Oh, I tremble.
Can't you love me?
Oh, dear, I am only just poor little guy. You, there.
But also project both synchronously without it being a pain in the butt for theater owners. Then came improving technologies for recording movie sound on phonograph discs. In 1921, the photokinema sound on disc system was employed to record a love song and some dialogue sequences for famed silent movie director D.W. Griffith's film Dream Street. The talking scenes were of poor quality and never made it into a public showing of the film. Despite not faring much better auditorially, the love song did make it in a re-release of the film in May 1921, making it the first feature film with a live recorded vocal section. And despite a push for the photokinema system at a New York theater showing a series of photokinema shorts with Dream Street, the system wasn't turning a profit. Cut to 1925 when Sam Warner of the Warner Brothers saw a demonstration of the Western Electric sound-on-disc system. An early adopter, Sam Warner convinced his brothers to give the system a shot. The Warner Brothers experimented with sound at the recently purchased Vitagraph Studios. The brothers liked how their experiments turned out and got exclusive rights to the Western Electric system, even starting the Vitaphone Corporation with Sam Warner as its president. 1926's Warner Brothers film Don Juan, starring John Barrymore, was the first feature to use the newly titled Vitaphone system. There was no audible dialogue, but instead sound effects and a synchronized music track. Though the feature was accompanied by a series of Vitaphone shorts featuring musical acts and an intro from William Hayes, who later developed the Hayes Code to censor and provide moral guidelines for films.
No story ever written for the screen is as dramatic as the story of the screen itself. Tonight, we write another chapter in that story. Far indeed have we advanced from that few seconds of shadow of a serpentine dancer 30 years ago when the motion picture was born, to this public demonstration of the Vitaphone, synchronizing the reproduction of sound with the reproduction of action.
Later in 1926, Warner Brothers followed up with Better Ol'. Like Don Juan, it functioned like a silent film, but with a synchronized score. Also like Don Juan, it was preceded by sound shorts. 4 of the 7 shorts still exist. The most notable probably being a plantation act featuring Al Jolson in his first film, where he sings 3 popular songs in blackface.
What if I've been blue, now I'm walking through fields of flowers. Rain may glisten, but still I listen for hours and hours. I'm just a kid again, doing what I did again, singing a song. When the red, red robin starts bobbing along.
Better Ol' proper does feature some yays and boos and a song with lyrics. One character might also whisper the word coffee. But the sound is faint enough that film scholars dispute this. Personally, I think he says it because really, what else could that sound be? There was no attempt to sync the song with the visuals, and all instances of human vocal elements were pre-recorded and not live, with the yays and boos serving more as a sound effect than dialogue, so it kind of doesn't count in my opinion. To make a long story short, too late! After much hoopla from Warner Brothers and other studios, Warner Brothers released The Jazz Singer on October 6, 1927, a day after the sudden death of Sam Warner. It again plays out mostly as a silent film, but unlike Don Juan and Better Ol', it featured 2 scenes of ad-lib dialogue and multiple musical sequences from Al Jolson, at the time one of the biggest and highest paid entertainers. The film was a massive hit, becoming the biggest or second biggest hit of 1927, depending on what numbers you look at. Sound film still had a long way to go, and the changeover still needed years and a lot of convincing. What was different this time was the studios knew talkies could be profitable, so there was more push to make them happen. Oh, and if you're wondering what was the first feature-length all-talkie film, it was the much lesser-known 1928 Warner Brothers film, Lights of New York.
Sooner or later, the cops are going to find out that your barbershop's only a speakeasy. Oh, you know, Hawk Miller's always hanging around me.
Hawk Miller? Hawk Miller likes me. He's my friend. And besides, he knows that you're my girl.
You don't know Hawk like I do.
It's utterly horrible, please never watch it. My goal with my original print review was to examine The Jazz Singer not as a phenomenon and critical point of film history, but to evaluate it as a film. So let's do that once again, shall we? Adapted from Samson Raphaelson's 1925 play of the same name, which in turn was based on his 1922 short story The Day of Atonement, which itself was based on the early years of Lithuanian-American singer, actor, and vaudevillian Al Jolson, who was the son of a rabbi and cantor. The Jazz Singer follows Jackie Rabinowitz, played by Bobby Gordon, who runs away from home after his father, Cantor Rabinowitz, played by Warner Oland, strongly disapproves of his son's interest in popular music like jazz instead of traditional cantor songs. Cut 2 years later, Jackie, now calling himself Jack Robin and played by Al Jolson, is a struggling stage singer trying to make it big. One night, while singing in a nightclub, the audience cheers him, leading to the movie's most iconic scene.
Wait a minute. You ain't heard nothing yet.
That night, he meets a musical theater dancer, Mary, played by Mae McAvoy, who likes him and is performing. She helps him land his big break, a role in a new musical. Jack's career is going up and up, but his chance of success and stardom may be in peril when he reconnects with his supportive mother, played by Eugenie Besserer, and his still stubborn father back in New York. With Mary pushing Jack to follow his dreams, and his father and others in the Jewish community wanting him to embrace his Jewish heritage and talent as a cantor, Jack must decide who he is and what life he wants to lead. What's funny about all the past and present hype for this being the first feature-length synchronized sound film with audible words spoken, even though it isn't, is its first scene with vocal elements, in this case singing, isn't actually synchronized with the picture.
They call the frivolous sound a peculiar sort of a gown.
Now, I'm willing to give everyone involved a pass since this was obviously early days, but it's rather humorous to see and hear after all the fanfare. Like, how did audience respond at the time? Did they even notice, or were they confused why sound and picture weren't matching? I'm pretty sure the filmmakers were afraid audiences would notice though. The shots of young Jackie singing are rare. The few we get don't rest on him very long, the camera preferring to show us the audience with only quick cuts to Jackie. At any rate, the second scene with vocals is fine, sort of. Visual and audio are much better, but for the traditional synagogue song Kol Nidra, and I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, Warner Oland is dubbed by Hungarian Joseph Diszky, a famous Metropolitan Opera singer who later opened a voice studio and taught actors to sing. Bobby Gordon was also dubbed, by the way, but by an unknown singer. For the synagogue scene, Mr. Diszky does sing the song well. I can see why Jolson was so popular and loved. Admittedly, his melodramatic songs aren't my bag, but that's less to do with him and more the songs being, well, not that good in my opinion.
And when my work is done, coming home to the setting sun, from the gate he'll start to run, and then I'll kiss my boy. Dirty hands, dirty face, little devil, that's what they say. But to me, he's an angel of a joy.
Most of these somber songs are also done in blackface. Okay, let's dive into this can of worms. The views on Jolson's blackface routines are complicated. Modern critics have called Jolson the king of blackface performers, and Jolson over the decades has faced his fair share of criticism for the blackface. But surprisingly, he was supported by the black community in his day and still has his defenders. To be fair though, I don't know how many of those modern supporters are people of color. Some look back on his blackface as an expression of the mutual suffering of Jews and blacks throughout history. Michael Alexander, an historian and an associate professor of Jewish studies and religious studies at the University of California, Riverside, thinks the jazz scene uses liturgical Jewish music and the imagined music of African Americans as metaphors for Jews and blacks. Reviewers at the time noticed the symbolism. One critic even suggested that jazz music was the new prayer of the American masses, with Jolson as their cantor and blackface as his prayer shawl. I don't know if Jolson intended that metaphor, but either way, the film was a big hit with African Americans. Blacks, some of them at least, saw it as a gateway for themselves to enter entertainment, and Jolson certainly supported them throughout his life on Broadway and in films. He promoted all black shows, had many black friends such as tap dancer Bill Bojangles Robinson, fought for equal treatment for black entertainers like jazz singer Cab Calloway, took black songwriters U.B. Blake and Noble Sissle out to eat when he heard they, whom he'd never met, were denied service because of their race. He and his then wife, actress Ruby Keeler, invited black performers to their home. He was a crucial figure in introducing jazz, ragtime, and the blues to white audiences, thus paving the way for black performers. And he was generally seen as a friend and hero to blacks when those were few in the white community. Basically, while the blackface makes me uncomfortable, it's still racist in its design, the big lips and all that, and for me doesn't really add anything to the songs he performs in it. I think fondly of Al Jolson because I know his heart was in the right place with it, even if that doesn't make the blackface totally alright. The film's climactic song being My Mammy doesn't help either and had me eye-rolling at the stereotyped title instead of getting me emotionally involved in the scene and its subtext for Jack and his mother. Honestly, I actually enjoy this song, but the title combined with the blackface isn't great, and there's really no reason this needs to be done in blackface to begin with.
Mammy, Mammy, my heartstrings are tangled around Alabama. I'm a-coming. Sorry, I made you wait. I'm coming. I hope and trust I'm not late. Mammy, Mammy, I'd walk 1,000,000 miles for one of your smiles on my Mammy.
Jolson truly shines in his upbeat numbers. I can't help but smile at his rendition of Blue Skies by Irving Berlin, but that may be more down to the actual song than Jolson.
Blue skies smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Oh, bluebirds singing a song, nothing but little bluebirds all day long. I never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, oh, don't they fly? Blue days, all of them gone, nothing but blue skies from now on.
And then there's my favorite song in the movie, Toot Toot Tootsie Goodbye, which highlights Jolson's unbridled energy and joy in performing that's pure infectious entertainment.
Toot Toot Tootsie Goodbye. Toot Tootsie, don't cry. The little choo-choo train that takes me away from you. You don't know just how sad it makes me. Kiss me pretty and then, ow, ow, do it over again. Watch for the mail, I'll never fail. If you don't get a letter, then you know I'm in jail. Hey, hey, don't cry, Tootsie, don't cry. Kiss me, Tootsie, goodbye.
The rest of the movie isn't horribly unique. Old traditions and a newer, hipper way pulling someone into a state of lost limbo is well trodden. But I really jived with it this time, while I think I found it just okay 10 years ago. I don't know what it is that worked better for me this time. This film is very much going through the motions of this type of story, but Jolson and everyone else do their jobs well. I felt for Jack, his father, and his mother, and understood and sympathized with where they came from, even if I felt Jack's dad needed to be less stubborn and more supportive of his son's dreams. Whatever the reason, I found it a touching story about a man reconciling with his father and his family traditions and integrating them into his life in a healing, healthy way. Being Jewish is a greater part of Jack than he realizes, and it's embracing it that allows him to be more himself instead of less. His passion remains in seeing popular music on stage, but he can do so now with his heart full and complete. He can now expose himself emotionally on stage, fully and more honestly. The Jazz Singer is a nice little story about a man coming to peace with his past and finding his true self, with some entertaining songs and some not so good thrown in. Still, while it changed films, it won't change your life. As for me, I'm optimistic about my next 10 years making videos. I hope you all are too, because you ain't heard or seen nothing yet.
Blue sky, smiling at me, nothing but blue skies do I see. Oh, toto, bluebirds singing a song, nothing but little bluebirds all day long. I never saw the sun shining so bright, never saw things going so right. Noticing the days hurrying by, when you're in love, oh, don't they fly? Blue days, 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 all of them gone. Nothing but blue skies from now on.